Okie dokie now. Oh, top also. Top also. I can speak English. No, I can't today. Greetings, everybody, and welcome to Discussing Tabletop. Are you all having a fine Saturday? I hope you are.
Yeah.
You know, a little bit of a busy, kind of chaotic weekend, because on top of everything for Saturday, it's sort of like, honestly, organizing a one-shot in a couple of days. That looks like things are kind of coming together, so thumbs up on that.
Yeah, you actually got 3 people.
Yeah. You know, it's one of those things I had been thinking about it, but as soon as we, like, hit this week, I'm like, oh, wait, yes, May is tomorrow. For whatever reason, it felt like April wasn't ending.
Yeah, I get that. No, I was actually very much in the same boat.
Yeah. My brain has been like, oh, it's a couple weeks out. That's how my brain was working about it, when it was really, like, nowhere near that long.
Yeah, I mean, like, here's the thing. Like, I felt that way, and even even while I was doing stuff for, like, the new month, at work.
Mm-hmm. Well, we got an interesting selection of topics to talk about today. A bunch of, like, some smaller topics and a few bigger topics. A few follow-ups for some things, too. So I hope you, as we go through the news, I hope everybody will be enjoying it. And then we'll have some good discussion to finish up today. So I guess, why don't we start with our news topics this week to talk about then. Alright, so I gotta be honest, because we've mentioned them a lot, I wanted to mention them, but, like, there's a couple more secret layers from Magic. They just don't seem very exciting overall. I'm not gonna lie about that. Like, even, like, the art style of these, I will link the, two here. There is another, and here's the thing. There is another secret layer that is a commander deck, so a full 100 card deck. They're charging like $200 for it. That's like pretty insane in my book, unless they all have new art, which they might. And like, it just seems kind of crazy for me, like, because I think they had done a charge for a previous commander deck for half that price. So this is like double the price, and I don't know if the cards are better for that one. So I think that one's a much more difficult one to, like, point out and be like, yeah, maybe you want to check it out. It's a 5-color shapeshifter changeling deck. Cool. As for the other secret layers, none of them really feel like art that really screams very interesting. I mean, if you like Jay Howell's stuff, that got some of his art here.
Yeah, it's not that. Trying to remember what he did.
I know the name, but it's like remembering everything for the illustrations and stuff is kind of hard for me to remember.
Oh, he's Bob's Burger.
Okay. Gotcha. That makes sense then. That's, again, familiarity with art style is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about, like, the other 4 ones. There's a land one, and I think I've given my opinion on the land ones.
I think.
And, like, I look at some of these cards that are neat, but also, like, I don't know. So again,
he was the original character designer for Bob's Burger.
Okay, cool. So the character designer, that does make sense.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimate Pencil Super Drop is what they're calling it, and that just seems weird. Anyway, yep. I don't know what else I can say about these other than, like, it's more, and they might not be in a style I like, but maybe they're valuable, or maybe you like some of these art styles. Certainly speaking, the artist ones are usually the ones that stand out. And at least they're all 5 cards. Yep. That's what I'll say. At least they're all 5 cards. Anyway.
$200 for 4 pieces of cardboard.
$200 for the yes, it's 100, but it's probably like, it's 100 that includes a whole bunch of cards that are probably not valuable. So the $200 commander deck.
Oh yeah, how much are the normal secret layers? Oh yeah, they're like 30. They're like 30
30?
Up to 100. That's what. Okay, that's what I sell at 100. Okay, yeah. Non-foil is 30, but still, it's $30 for like 4 pieces of cardboard that may or may not even be worth their value based on their printing.
Yeah, I think that's the thing is, because you have to know how much the cards are valuable. And yes, secret layer printing, is it going to affect the prices? Maybe. But judging by the prices pre-drop, you can get an idea of how valuable they are. Again, it also comes down, do you need the cards? Are these a reprint of the card? That might be easier to get. And, et cetera, and do you like the art style? Again, the land ones is the one that I feel is the worst. It's like an interesting idea, but like they're lands. Anyway, at least you get 2 of each of the lands. Okay, I'll give you that. It's not a lot. So yeah, check those out if you're interested.
Honestly, I really do feel like for the land ones, you should get like 5 of each.
Yes, even just I would take even like. 5 of each sounds like the best. Like 4 of each is a playset, even though basic lands you can have any number of. It's these. It's better than it was, but it's still not quite there. Because they're lands.
Yep. But it's also $30 for literally the like, basically for the price of the cardboard, because that's what lands are.
Yeah. So I don't know. Other people will do financial things, or I would recommend doing that before you should have the drop. Fortunately, the drop doesn't happen for the pencil super drop until May 12th, so you have a little bit of time before things get crazy and you have to somehow get in there. And same for the commander deck. It doesn't come out to May 12th. So you got a little time, at least someone to get analysis out financially, or if you want to do it yourself, thumbs up, good luck, and then good luck in trying to get limited supply if you're really interested, and it's what you need for your deck. And that's that little one. I did want to step on it, because again, we do. It's the thing of like I like to say, there's a core of something that was a great idea for Secret Lair. It just hasn't been done right, and I always hope that maybe one of these drops they'll have lived up to their promise. Reprints,
Yeah, it is weird that they do all of these things, and none of them are, like, reprints of the unique cards that they don't have licenses to and stuff.
Yeah, again, it's that kind of thing of, like, getting universes within reprints would be great. Or just, honestly speaking, there are a lot of cards out there that are good in a lot of decks, have a lot of value, that could use reprints, and sometimes they put them out there, sometimes they don't. It's kind of like that. It's that weird thing of like, you can you roll a die and be like, have they printed something in the Secret Lair this time that would be good for people and they're getting out of value? I don't know. Again, they're playing up to the secondary market, which they really should not. They should, secondary markets don't help companies.
That's the thing. It sounds like the health of a good health of a secondary market does actually say good health of a franchise. I wouldn't say the company itself, but a franchise.
Yeah. And that's the thing is, I don't necessarily think the secondary market is very healthy financially. I don't think it's the worst it's been, but I don't think it's great.
Yeah. No, I don't even know like what their business motto is right now. It's kind of just like, ooh, unique artists make cool art to make people like go, ooh, I want and buy, regardless of if the card's good or not. It's like they seem to be pushing more towards the collectible side of things than the because there are people who buy everything. Yeah.
I think what they want is they want a little bit of like what's kind of happened with Pokemon. Pokemon still is a game, but it's become very much more a heavier collector's market.
Yes, it's got a very heavy collector's market.
Yeah, which is like I had
a bunch of Pokemon. Oh, sorry.
I was going to say it's kind of insane how it's kind of evolved.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, it was kind of always that way. I mean, I had like a bunch of Pokemon cards growing up, and I never played the game. I
mean, I tried playing the game a little bit when I got some cards. But again, it's one of those things is like, nowadays, the secondary market, the Pokemon market, is kind of insane for collectors more than players. And again, they still have players, but it's in a weird spot for it. And I think it's driven on the brand that is Pokemon in a lot of ways, you know, and I think that's what can keep it going. Because I feel like the position that Pokemon as a trading card game is not good for the health of a trading card game. And it's relying on the fact that, hey, this is Pokemon, which is a famous, like, you know, a popular franchise in and of itself. And Magic doesn't have that. And I guess maybe that's what they're trying to do with all the Universes Beyond. They're trying to put themselves as, like, we have all the franchises, we can get you into this collector's FOMO market now. That's not a really good direction to go in. Ugh. I hope that's not what it is. But I feel like I stumbled on, like, a possible dark timeline that...
I mean, yeah, the FOMO market... I've, like, been seeing the FOMO market as being the whole driving force of this recently. They're putting out things constantly in limited runs. It's a FOMO market.
It's just... I mean... Again, if there are cards in this one that you could get for cheaper, cool. Or if you like the art or anything like that, again... They are fancy promos, so check out the secret layers of them.
I'm honestly 100% for the idea of just putting out unique artwork on different things for people who like the unique art. But it should be done in a way that like makes sense, like, or that, and it's just constant. It's it has no tie to like, I don't know.
It's one of those things. Is like, I don't think you necessarily have to meet the value of a thing. But the thing is, like, you want it to at least be like, if I'm spending $30, and maybe it's only $20 worth of cards, but I really like the art, that's great. But if I spend $30, and you're giving me, like, $5 worth of cards, that kind of feels bad. Because it's sort of like... I think that's kind of where, like, there's this line between it, that you want at least some value, especially when it comes to, like, the cards themselves, too. Because it's a market.
Yeah,
you know?
I almost wish they tried to align them more with specific play styles. So that way it's all like, oh, I can get these 5 cards and put them all in my deck, you know?
Yeah. I think some of these look like they kind of were, like some burn spells were one of them.
Some do, I've seen some that are like consistent colors with some things that have synergy and stuff like that.
Yeah.
In fact, the Everything is on Fire ones are, you know, all red.
It's the same color, but I like looking at them.
Do they combine? I don't know. I don't know the mechanics well enough to be able to say if they do or not.
Looking at them, some of these are okay spells, but none of them really scream to me, these are really great fire spells. You know, like Chain Lightning is neat, but it's a gimmick card in a lot of ways. It's always been kind of a gimmick card. Because things like same things with things like this. I don't know. Yeah, no. And I don't even know what the Vroom thing is supposed to be. You know, I'm not gonna lie. It's another set of red cards and an artifact, and it's just weird. But I think
it's
again,
another
like,
artist, but yeah.
Yes, I guess it's another specific.
What's a comic artist? Comic book artist. Turo Terada.
Okay. That might explain, like, so it's another artist series for that. Okay.
Yeah. It's a comic book artist who does like a. I was looking that up. Does like I don't know what manga he works on. I couldn't find that.
Again, it does feel a lot of times that, like, they're scraping the bottom of the barrel for a lot of ideas, and I'm like, you can just have okay ideas, or simpler ideas sometimes, too. It could just be, you get one of your artists to draw different versions of the same cards, and it's fine, you know. I think those are the best ones. The artist series are really the best ones, you know, of them all. I just sometimes wish they would have better card selections for the artists. I don't know. Or, like, you know, is it... or it'd be nice to hear from, if these are cards an artist selected rather than Wizards gave them to do, if there's a story behind it, that would be great for us to know about. And that would be, like, awesome, because it would make these things much more personal to these artists. And it would be a more neat thing, you know. And we could say, like, oh, that's really cool that they did all these things here. And that the story sometimes then makes up for value. And we don't have that sometimes. And so it's like, why are you having, like, this 5-cent card that you have them do?
Again, I don't care as much about the card value as long as they're useful cards that can go in a deck and you like the art. Like, that's the thing. Yeah. Like, my big thing about these is they should be something that you can buy and use. They shouldn't be useless cards. They should be usable cards. But, and, you know, so it's like, oh, I like this. It would go good in my deck. Like, that's what I would care about.
I actually do agree on that a lot. That they're, like, cards that find place somewhere. I think it's just to find that we've seen... I've definitely seen over the years, a lot of these, like, 5-cent cards are like, well, it has play, like, in one place that's not very popular or very good, but, I mean, it might be usable. They're not unusable, they're just sort of like that niche combo deck, which maybe does, like, okay in this one format, but never really great, and it's never, like, in the top tournaments of that format, you know?
Yeah.
The niche commander that, like, you know, is fun on kitchen table, but not really a lot of other places.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and that's kind of the thing to me, is, like, because of this inconsistency, and this fact that, like, they're not tailoring to, like, their actual play, their gameplay, their actual gameplay, like, they're not tailoring cards to people to, like, gameplay mechanics in any way, then, like, that just shows me that they're pushing more the collector side.
Yeah. And
the amount they're pushing here makes me feel like they're pushing for FOMO.
Yeah. I do feel like that's probably what it is. Like, yeah. Anyway. Yeah. So, let's continue on, though. Update. Jeremy Crawford has left now. We talked about it a few weeks ago, that he was announcing his left. Now he's gone. So, it's just a little bit of an update. I wanted to say that, you know, because it did happen this week, finally. And so, good luck to you, Jeremy, whether you're just retiring and doing stuff personally, or you decide to, you know, go join another company. I'm sorry. Or even just doing something on your own. Whichever of those, like, 3 directions you take, good luck to you. You know, I do think he's been a good face for Wizards and D&D. And, you know, through all the ups and downs from 3.5 through 4th to 5th, you know, I think he did a pretty good job. Yeah. Not gonna lie. So, what's up?
Yeah, I'm curious if these, because, like, how old is Chris Perkins and Jeremy Crawford?
Well, Jeremy, according to the article I linked there, which was just an announcement is going by, and I'm sure there's other places to see that, had been working at Wizards for 18 years. And that's a pretty good period of time. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
I didn't know he did some work at Green Ronin before there. And co-designed the Blue Rose role-playing game. See, these are things that I didn't know until this article. But again, like, I get into it very deeply for those kind of things. Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out where so Chris Perkins is actually 57, which is around a time where someone can retire.
Yeah.
I feel like very few people actually do retire like, most people push till 65. My boss is still kicking at 85. At 85. Like 86.
It depends on your situations a lot, and I do get the feeling that both I get the feeling that both Jeremy and Chris are probably going to do something else in the tabletop world, but probably something a little less big and corporate. Probably smaller projects and stuff like that. Kind of like we still see Richard Garfield, who created Magic, still do stuff nowadays. He's been involved in a number of other CCGs, of other board games and stuff like that. So sort of like he just kind of goes around and does some projects occasionally, and helps out here and there. So yes, he's a good designer, but also like he's got a name that you can put behind things then too. So I think it'll be. I do think that we will see more of them, but how much more, I don't know. I do get the feeling because they're, whether that is just actually game creation or just maybe involved in something, maybe Chris will want to continue to run things like, I thought he was running Acquisitions Incorporated. I wonder if he's still going to do that then. I thought he was running some of them. Yeah. Not like all of the, because they were doing them on every PAX, I thought. So I don't know if he's running for any works on this regime. I don't know. So Paizo has a Humble app, and this is one that is they call their Asian Fantasy Bundle. It's a lot of stuff from the TNZ World Guide, and it's for an organization to basically help for, against hate based on Asian Pacific Islander groups, So, again, as with all things and charity, look into the charity yourself if you're interested in it. Look into the materials available on Humble, and do all the various things that are involved in it. It's like the TNC World Guide, Fist of the Ruby.
Phoenix. I do want to comment. I'm still digging. I find it so weird that Jeremy Crawford's his birthday. I found his birthday, but not his birth date or his age. Sorry, I'm just so intrigued by that. Does he just hide his age? Is he like one of those kind of people?
It may have just not been something that's ever come up or needed to come up somewhere.
Usually it's because people just literally don't mention it because they don't like people knowing.
It could have just been that he's never mentioned his age,
Yeah. Generally, it's generally hard to keep something like that hidden from everyone.
Yeah.
Unless you actively try. So it's usually something that someone has to try to do.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, I've just been digging for that and I can't find it. But yeah.
I did link the Paizo.
It also doesn't help that there were multiple people named Jeremy Crawford. Okay.
That never helps when there's things like that. Anyway, it does include the player core, the sketchbook hardcover version of it. As I said, it's got the monster core, TNC World Guide, and character guide. A bunch of the older second edition bestiaries and stuff like that. So there's a bunch of books in there, and a couple other Pathfinder Society scenarios, which is the PDFs, and then the physical player core is part of it. And again, if you want to, it is for the Stop AAPI Hate. So is the group that's benefiting. So
is there really that much Pacific Islander hate? That's one thing that's I have never heard of this before.
Here's the thing: is I can't say there's not, because historically speaking, there are issues.
Historically speaking, yes, I do know that, but I have not heard anything recently.
Here in the U.S., I haven't heard about it, but it also
could be
That's a good
point. It could be elsewhere. Also, it could be in other parts of the U.S. too. I know there's some hate in California, but it's not strong, and that's why I'm
I'm not gonna lie.
People hate Hispanics more here than they do Asians.
I'm on this border with the more rural areas / less educated areas of Pennsylvania. I don't want to say that they're just all going to be horrible racists in the areas of Pennsylvania that are more conservative, but there is unfortunately a lot more movements, and it's not just conservative people that have
Yeah.
too sometimes. You know,
Anyway,
but again,
it's just a charity I've never heard of before, and that's why I'm just like, this is a thing?
I guess because it's it's American Asian Pacific Islander. I did not know that either. But again, I don't know a lot of these months that happen until people talk about them, and I'm like, cool, great for you, thumbs up.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I assume, you know, when there's issues places, they do things to help. I'm not in that group. I don't know whether there's discrimination against it. So, like, again. Anyway,
okay, so it's on the right. Okay, so there is some hate on. I'm looking at the Stop API website. Apparently, just growing racism in general under Trump.
Yeah, unfortunate. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. It is. I understand that then. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunate.
Because that's the thing, is the whole anti-immigration policies that he pushes basically just target minorities because, I mean, let me put it, you could either have people do well-educated and, you know, expensive and good investigations to find people here illegally, or you could racially profile. Most people go for the second one.
It's unfortunately a thing that, like, here's me. Someone that's very much in the middle of all these things. I'll always say that. My political leaning is right kind of in the middle of a lot of stuff. And I think it's like, unfortunately, no one really gives a good answer, and it's a complex issue, and I don't think it's being handled well right now. It's not the answer, but again, it's like, it's not an easy answer to give, and everybody wants to give an easy answer, and, you know, I think that's just politicians in general. You know, it's good words to say an easy answer. It's not. It's complex. It's terrible. You know, there's a lot of problems. I just don't think it's being handled well right now.
So it's just in general, that same kind of general racism that exists everywhere, which is fair, honestly.
Yeah. So makes sense. It's a good month to try to, you know, fight that, support, you know, understanding each other, all that kind of stuff. Thumbs up on that.
Yep.
So,
Too bad I have pretty much all of these books already.
Yeah. So if you're interested in them, check them out, etc., you know, and yeah, we'll have them. So, all right. Shall we talk about an interesting one because it's tangentially related to us? Because this is more video games, but they've handled some tabletop-related stuff before. Oh, no, first Galaxy Guide. I'm sorry. I'm skipping ahead. You got the Galaxy Guide. If you want to talk about it just a little bit. I forgot when you mentioned
Galaxy
that
Guide.
We can talk about it briefly. How much
getting some green screen action, but
yeah.
So, I'm a little disappointed. I was expecting Galaxy, but it basically just, in my opinion, goes into a lot of the same details that the Pact Worlds book goes into.
Oh.
It's basically mostly talking about the Pact Worlds. Now, it's kind of interesting because I didn't expect this, honestly, when I got it, but it actually gave, like, 5 adventures. So it's actually, like, 5 like, one-shot adventures.
Okay.
So that's actually a good, I'd probably say, third of the book. And then you've got probably, no, even like half the, oh yeah, and then you've got another section, which is factions, which does go into, let's see, does that go into, I feel like, yeah, I mean, it's still mostly factions of Pact space. And then, and then it gives you a section on the ancestries, which, you know, is neat. They've got them set up for the whole Starfinder 2e, Pathfinder 2e ways with all the, you know, the extra feats and stuff.
Yeah.
I do like that for every faction, every major faction, it actually gives an archetype, which is neat.
Okay. Yeah, that's pretty neat. That kind of fits you in with them definitely a little bit better to have a little bit more background. So that's interesting.
Yeah. And a bunch of backgrounds. Yeah, the big thing for me is just that the base, like, it also basically goes into a bit of the history of pack space and just a bit.
So I get the feeling that it has some interesting stuff, but it doesn't have as much in the direction you would have liked to with the book.
I already knew, because I have the pack, you know, as to kind of look at you, and when I'm like, what is that book called? I actually have it. I have the Pact Worlds books, which goes into detail, and it doesn't even go into that as much detail as Pact Worlds, but it really only talks about the Pact Worlds, for the most part. Now, with that being said, it does have this awesome map of the galaxy, of the known galaxy, and it comes with a bigger whole, like, poster of it.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so I think this is cool.
That's definitely something that's very useful to have. Like,
yeah, so at least it gives a giant map of the galaxy.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So you can see where everything is.
Gotcha. So it seems interesting. Could have been better, but it's not necessarily terrible, I would say. It's got some...
yeah, it just doesn't... I was hoping it would go into... I was hoping it'd be an overview of the major factions around. Like, I was hoping it would talk about, you know, because, like... Because I've read up on a bit of Starfinder, but it's like there's a whole thing about, you know, the
Atlantic Star Empire.
Viscarium, the Atlantic Star Empire. You know, like, it didn't talk... It didn't... I was hoping it would go into the details about those kind of factions. Not just...
Because I get the feeling that
stuff.
The Viscarium, aren't they kind of allied with the Pact World, sort of? Is it kind of like with, like...
basically, there was a... So, the way
there
it
was
worked
the hive that Pact.
The swarm. So, so Vesk, you know, once the gap ended, Vesk were like, oh, we lost control of everything. We didn't conquer everything again. And so they went and started reconquering, and they ended up clashing with Pact Space. But then the swarm came.
Yeah.
Pact Space helped the Vesk fight them off, and then they made a truce.
Yeah, I kind of got the feeling that Veskum was kind of almost like how the Federation and Klingons are in Star Trek. You know?
Yes, actually, very much. Yes, it's a good comparison. But I was hoping it would go into the details of the different factions around the universe, not just more Pact Space.
Yeah, because I guess
it's kind of like giving a book called The World Guide. I mean, they kind of did do this. A book called The World Guide, and going into still mostly, you know, Varisia.
I mean, unfortunately, they did do a lot of that for us. Like, we're focusing on these things. I guess we'll just come out with books for these other regions later. I mean, I kind of did that.
Yep. So that's why I'm disappointed, because it's like, you know, a book called The World Guide for Galarian, I would hope would touch on all the different parts of the world. Which, funny enough, The World Guide does not. So...
Yeah, I think it's just like, they've written so much about these things, and I think it's also that in Starfinder, we'll probably see more, I'm going to assume, but yeah, it would have been nice that maybe, like, they had more. Because it does sound like the groups they talk about are just... They're powerful, but they're, like, not that powerful as a comparison to a lot of the big galactic ones, like Abadar Corp and like the current versions of the Hell Knights and stuff like that. It seems to be in the book. It's interesting, but yeah. So, all right. So I guess that's the Galaxy Guide. You know, it might be helpful for you. It's, you know, we kind of gave you an idea of what's kind of in it, and you know, that can give you an idea of if you're interested in the book or not. So, yeah.
Yep. It's got 5 races. I should also mention that.
Yeah.
Or is it 6? Let me...
6, it says here. Astrazen, Contemplative, Dragonkin, Kalo, Sosarians, Laka.
And you're familiar with all of them, right?
I think I talked about all of them. I have to remember all of them. I did that series of videos.
Vlaka are the disabled wolf people who have are either blind or deaf, or both.
I remember the Dragonkin, the Contemplated by the Brains.
And then the Sarcesians are the butterfly space vacuum people.
Oh, the butterfly space vacuum people. Yeah, they're neat.
Callow are I didn't actually read up on them because they just they're water people.
Okay.
And then the Dragonkin and
the Astrozoran, which are shapeshifters.
Yep, they're the ones who can shapeshift.
I do really love that one thing that Starfinder does that is so much better than so many other space-based games is when they are aliens, they really are alien in a lot of ways, you know? It's it's moth people. It's weird floating brains, you know?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, it also works that they can go outside of speculative biology. Because that's the thing. The problem with a lot of space... So, there was, a theory in, back in the day, back in, the 60s and earlier, probably even closer to, the, 40s and 50s, where basically people believed that if there were aliens, they would be bipedal because the bipedal human form was, ideal. And then you got things like Star Trek, which just didn't have a budget to make things look super weird. And it just kind of solidified this. Aliens are humanoid in the mindset of people.
Yeah. Definitely, that's definitely one of those reasons that we didn't really see a lot in Star Trek, Star Wars, and all those places.
I mean, even Traveler, everything's bipedal. I mean, almost everything is an uplifted creature outside of 3 things. But it's at least got the I forget what they're called, but they are starfish people.
I think the idea of being able to use tools and items is a good part about that. So evolving something that's either a hand or something akin to a hand, whether it's bipedal or not, is a logical thing for, because tool use helps with a lot of, higher brain functions and stuff like that. So, that part of it, having something you can manipulate things with, again, logical sense when it comes to, evolved, intelligent beings.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is, we know now that a lot of creatures can actually manipulate things with very different appendages. Octopuses, I mean, even crabs can be pretty dexterous with their claws in some cases. So it's we know, okay, well, now we know. And so more recent things tend to be hit. And I talked about speculative biology. That's a fun tool nowadays where it's people really just theorize about what could work in an environment.
Yeah. So,
so
it's more recent,
but it's just... Yeah, so it's honestly, in my opinion, the reason it can go that way is because it's modern. It literally, was something made in a few years ago. It's a whole new world, and not building off something that's been around forever.
Okay. So we have what I was going to talk about before I remember that we were talking about that is, hey, Polygon had a lot of layoffs. So Polygon, I think they do more video game news, but they do some tabletop news related stuff and they're a big news site. I just don't usually go to them for stuff because again they're a lot more, honestly, they felt more mainstream. And I thought, they might talk about some of these stories that are the big stories, but they're probably not going to talk about a lot of the more interesting stories in the tabletop world. And they're going to also talk about video games and other things. So they've done a wide variety of stories. They were acquired by the Valnet Group, and apparently this has also meant a lot of layoffs. So... I mean, we've seen this with a bunch of, news places. They get
I have no idea why this... Yeah, so wait, so were they acquired first?
They were acquired by the Valnet Group, which I hadn't even heard of. There's a link to the Business Wire article about that. I guess this is pretty recently that they were acquired, too. So, yeah. Recently acquired, and it led to a bunch of layoffs. Wow. Yeah. Valnet, Fox Media. Okay, so Polygon was with Vox Media, and Valnet purchased them from there. Interesting. I didn't know a lot about their parent company, Vox Media, and I don't know a lot about Valnet. But again, you feel bad for people being laid off, and, you know, this will be, whether or not they rehire people, whether they restructure, whether what's going on with them, it does mean that them as a source kind of will fall apart a little bit. We saw, like, Dicebreakers was acquired the other year, comicbook.com, you know, a lot of these things. And Dicebreakers was a pretty good site for looking at the tabletop media, and it was acquired and nothing's happened with it. I haven't checked it out in like a few weeks and stuff like that, but I've occasionally stopped by there, and yeah, it's the site's still there. It's effectively just a dead site, and it was acquired, you know, last year, and, you know, just nothing's being used from it. So I don't know what's gonna happen with Polygon now. Again, losing a bunch of people, but, you know, I do remember I've checked out their site for articles before, so yeah. Dang.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, May 1st.
It's good for us to have media sources, and loss of them is kind of sad. Yeah.
Huh.
Did you find something out? Oh, sorry.
Yeah. So, person who owns Valnet, I'm not sure if they're part of the same company, but at least it's the person who founded Valnet is also the person who founded Burnout. Anyway, I was just like, wait, really? I was looking at the Wikipedia site for them.
The small world. Anyway.
Yep.
So, I think we've talked a little bit about this, but over on Roll20, the Demiplane integration beta is live now. So if you want to get into and try using that tools, the beta is at least up. This is the public beta. This was the Demiplane Rules Compendium that was purchased by Roll20. They've got it integrated now. So I think it'll be interesting to see how this plays out, how it works. I'm not going to be testing it anytime soon, but if you want to test it out, apparently Pathfinder 2e, Vampire Masquerade 5e, Marvel Multiverse role-playing game, Cyberpunk Red, Candela Obscura, and Alien RPG are the Demiplane character sheets linked right now with this. So, yeah. I guess I've already switched over to Foundry, but maybe a future dive into Pathfinder 2e, I can test out their Demiplane. You know, see if that's, you know, gotten Roll20 up to snuff. Just to test it out.
Okay. They're founded by the same people, but they are not currently affiliated. Valnet.
Okay. Gotcha.
Sorry, I just ran across that when looking at the Wikipedia article, so that's why I was confused.
Hey, you know,
I wanted to get to the bottom of it.
So yeah, there's they're planning eventually to use Demiplane for at least 14 different games, but there's only 6 live right now, so keep that in mind. So if you and against the cross-platform between Demiplane and Unity. Anyway, so we talked about it, and it is live now if you want to check it out. Thumbs up! Again, keep giving the thumbs up. I don't know if that's the appropriate way to give a nod here. Let's talk about some pulp adventures. Do you want to do some Indiana Jonesing? Outgunned Adventures is for pre-order under Free League now. They're partnering with Two Little Mice, which I assume is the people that created it.
Is it not always Free League? I thought they were always the publisher.
Maybe? Well, it's a new rule book, and a 3-part introductory campaign and director's screen they're bringing out. Three Little Mice being an Italian company, Outgunned Adventure being very much so of the pulp era, which I guess is more pulp adventure area, so it's, again, Indiana Jones kind of era of stories. And similar things, of, exploring strange forgotten ruins and mystical artifacts and, lost lands and stuff like that. A lot of those kind of stories.
I don't know, I guess they were published by Two Little Mice before.
Yeah, the original. I guess those are the original studio that did it. And now they're getting a bigger audience by connecting up with Free League.
Free League, yep.
Yeah. That's fine. It's good. It does a little bit more. Gives more options. I thought we might have talked about Outgunned Adventurers when it was up for Kickstarter.
We did. That's why I was confused, because I thought I remember Free League being mentioned at some point in there, but maybe not.
I can't say for sure on that one, because it's been a little while since we talked about it, But, it's cool to find some little bit of success. As I say, the publishing groups are always great, and if it gets them to a bigger audience, cool, that's awesome. Modifius, Free League, they're doing a good job of getting
honestly,
a lot of these
I do like the idea of having these books having separate publishers, because while sometimes publishing deals can be really bad, I feel like in the RPG community they tend not to be.
Yeah.
Like, I know publishing is extremely predatory in the video game industry.
Yeah.
And it can be bad depending on who you go with in the book industry.
Video game industry, yeah, you probably just want to publish it on your own. Book industry, there are some good publishers. You just have to do your research on that one,
Yeah.
and know where the good deals are.
Mm-hmm.
I guess
there's good reasons to go with publishers, and there's good reasons to go self-publishing for books. So
again, in this case, better connections for probably creating more product, a bigger company that has a bigger name that you're being published under, things like that. So I think that's why, there is a stamp of approval almost being maybe not created but published by Free League and Modifius, and there's a few others that I can't think of off the top of my head that do publishing aside from their own stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, Free League, Modifius are the two big ones that do that. Does Green Ronin also? I think Green Ronin also does separate publishing.
I think it does some publishing too. But yeah, I'd have to remember. Again, I think it's a few of the bigger groups here that have done well publishing their own tabletop stuff. Also have gotten a little bit into the publishing business, because I guess that's a good way. When you have these connections, you can use them, make a little bit of profit, and you honestly don't have to put as much work in. I don't have to create this. I don't have to put the art together. I just have to send the stuff you send to me to our publishing network and get it printed.
Mm-hmm.
We can be your connections and help with the shipping and stuff. And again, there's reasons for these middle people, like in this case, because it helps out the smaller people. They can get bigger certain deals they couldn't get on their own. And publishing. Anyway, shall we continue onward, though?
Yeah. Sorry, I was just looking at Wikipedia's list of role-playing game publishers.
So, I want to talk about this one. Again, I'm an anime fan, but this was an interesting one because it's a card-based TT. They call it a tabletop JRPG. So, I'm interested if the Gates of Krystalia / Last Ducks. Last Deuce, whatever. Card-based. The title invokes something, because it's sort of like a tabletop RPG, anime style. It was I guess maybe was this originally published in Japan, or is someone that's connected with it that has? That's because they do call it tabletop JRPG. So I've got some. Or is it just they're using systems that are reminiscent of the classic JRPG format? I don't know. Those are some questions that have come to mind because of the nature of this. But, yeah. Anyway, it is a funded campaign. Keep that in mind. 10 days to go. Above the Kickstarter link I sent there. They're doing stretch goals even now. Yeah. It's, again, card-based combat system. Is it I want to say Deadwood, but I don't think it's that's the person. It's like the Deadlands or something. No, God, what is it? The Western card-based one. I can't remember. It's on the tip of my tongue. TTRPG. Deadlands. It is Deadlands, the card-based one. Yeah, the Wild West one. That's the other real big card-based ones that they think of. But this is definitely based on like a 52 card standard playing card deck. It's based on stuff.
Yeah. I think this is just its own thing. I don't think this is.
Well, I think it is its own thing. But what I'm saying is that type of system. Oh, it's its own thing. So I guess it's. I see what you're saying. Yeah, I guess maybe.
Yeah, because I'm looking at their website right now, and they make no mention of it being like a adaptation or a crossover or something.
So,
yeah.
This is an interesting one, and there's an interesting direction for it, and I do have to talk about it. And I want to talk about this because there's something at the bottom here that's very interesting, and that is the person did use basically like some generative AI in here, but he talks about it as he used it for early concepts and then went through and developed it off of there to rework the images. So this is an interesting direction for it. So
to be fair, that's kind of how AI should be used in some ways, especially if it's someone trying to get across to artists what they want their images to kind of be like.
Okay. And the thing is, they also say, like, for the AI, he used as an example his own style, I guess what it was. So I guess the idea was, have some of your own style, throw them into the AI, come up with a bunch of basic drafts, and basically cut off some of the work for all the art you're doing then. It's an interesting idea for that.
Is it? Yeah, especially if it's a small team of, like, you know.
And they do say, we have consent and all necessary licenses to use these images in the software.
Okay, so they're actually feeding their own images into their own into a software. That's honestly the way that's honestly another way it probably could be done. This
is the thing of, like, I didn't see this originally. I thought the card-based system was interesting as the mechanical system, but this for the, like, side of art, this sounds like we're someone that's trying to use the material here in a way that is, like, what we want kind of in the direction for these kind of things, you know? Yeah. So that's fascinating.
AI is not a replacement for artists, as many big companies want to use it for. It's a tool, though. AI has always been a tool, and that's the thing. I say has always been because it's been around for a long time. I always hate these people who are all like, you know, AI is this new thing. It's like, no, it's not. It's just.
I think because the concept of AI thinks back to, like, the actual, like, more intelligent AIs of, like, sci-fi, when really there are different levels of it, and these kind of AI are very simplistic. They're not intelligences. They are basically a generative thing. You know, they are an artificial intelligence, but it's very rudimentary, you know.
So,
I think it's like the difference.
Why this type of AI is actually getting kind of into the realm of sci-fi is because we're not actually sure how they get to their results. That's really why it's a thing, like why it's intelligent now. But that doesn't mean they're not following rules.
But again, you can read up on there. Again, this is the entire thing, is wherever you're falling on the AI side of things, read up on what it is in there, understand what they're saying about it. They're being honest about what they used for it, which is great, and, how much work they did on it. You can read up on the Kickstarter to see if that part of the entire thing is, a make or break for you. But I think the system itself is an interesting system, whether or not you're on the art side of things they're providing for this, too. So keep all of that kind of things in mind as you present the project to you. So there's some interesting things going on in the project nonetheless. Check it out if you are interested. It is, again, funded, so yes. All right.
Yeah.
Let's talk about something that is I don't want to say it's weird, but it's kind of off there on the side. Okay, so I don't play gacha games. I know of a lot of them by name, because, people talk about them here and there, too. And, sometimes there are people, streamers that have played them. And the Gods of Victory Nikke is one of those games. Apparently, I've got two of them. Sorry. There are two TCGs which are getting, Nikke stuff. Which, one of them is Union Arena. Union Arena being the mixed anime world one. I think I described it as a little bit of the Universes Beyond / Fortnite. It's a mixture of a bunch of animes, and they at the very least they've built it to be that, so it makes sense. And the other one is Weiss Schwarz, which I don't know a lot about. Weiss Schwarz. I've heard the name before, but it's
okay, I've seen these images before. Hold on, let me. It's yeah. So it's a
I want to say something just because it's the thing. I think this is the one that I've shaken my head at and being yep, whatever. That's the thing. Is this the? I think, is Nikke the one that's got the ads with the people that shoot and have the jiggly butts?
Yes, that's where I'm pretty sure I've seen it before.
Yeah, I see. That's the thing is again, not a style of game I play. Games I've heard about. Putting them together, which one is which, is not always going to be an easy thing for me. Gotcha.
Yeah, that's why I'm I've seen this before.
Yeah.
It's so interesting because I haven't played a phone game in a long time. Well, outside of a few, but currently I don't play any that have ads.
Yeah, and I think some of these you can play on your computer too, desktop and stuff too.
Yeah.
Some of these gotchas you can do, because I think
That's becoming more popular as far as I'm aware. I keep seeing ads that are oh, this is now cross-platform, and I'm really? What?
It took me a minute to remember. Genshin Impact. I know that one you can play on things, and
that one I think was originally a computer game.
But I know you can also play it on phone too.
Yeah,
I've heard. Again,
you can.
I'm not a fan of these games, per se, just because I have a terrible addictive nature to my personality, so I avoid a lot of these kind of things. Anyway,
my problem is my desire to collect things, so I tend to want to have everything.
That's me. That's the problem.
It's a collector attitude, not a honestly, it's a better attitude than an actual addictive attitude. Addictive attitude is different.
I guess there is addictive nature that goes through my family a lot of places that some people have
mine too.
Things with that. But for me, it takes the form of a very collector mentality. Anyway, the Union Arena set will have 116 cards, so that's a pretty decent chunk of a set to have based around that. Which I guess is the Nikke warriors and their enemies, which again I don't know a lot about that. That's interesting. $5 boosters there, and then the Weiss Schwarz again is one of these ones. It's going to be a 115 card set. So with 173 parallel types. Again, I've heard of this game. I know nothing about playing the Weiss Schwarz one, so I can't say.
Yeah.
But it's kind of interesting to see that they're doing two TCGs at the same time.
Yep.
I guess it's a bunch of marketing, going on right now that they're probably doing. interesting.
Yeah.
That's what I can say about it. Good on them for like having a place to go for their marketing. You know, if this works for them, cool.
Yeah.
All right. I don't think I have anything else to say about it because, again, for those of you out there, if it's a product that's for you, cool.
Same.
Let's talk about some Space Wolves.
I even clicked deny cookies on the websites I went to looking this stuff up.
That is reasonable. So I guess the big thing is we're getting we're getting stuff for the Space Wolves. So I assume we are getting
Logan Grimmar, which is the leader of the Space Wolves.
Yeah, the leader of the Space Wolves
is getting a new token or figure. Yeah.
So now again, I think this kind of hints that we are going to get the Primarch probably of the Space Wolves at some point, Lehman Russ. I assume that's what it means, that we're kind of going to have him pop up and getting this big thing of Space Wolves right now.
Yeah, because Grimmar is one of the commanders, but not the head of the...
Yeah, again, it's the entire thing that the Space Marines have their groups, and then the Primarchs that show up, leave, etc., with storylines, you know, and it's like, hey, you know, the guy we're all based around, hey, good to see you, you know?
Yep.
I think Momo was talking about it, that Lehman is probably one of the easier ones with the storyline of him just coming back, because he just fucked off to do some stuff for a while anyway, so, like, it'd be pretty easy for him to just come back, storyline-wise.
Logan Grimmar is the chapter master of the Space Wolves.
Yeah, I guess the guy that's currently, like, in charge while their Primarch is off doing things somewhere, you know? It's like, well, I guess someone's gotta be in charge, it's gonna be me. I think it's neat that we're getting that, hinting at some bigger things coming in there in Warhammer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so basically the chapter master is like the current head, whereas the Primarch is the original head.
Yeah. And it's sort of like the Primarch could just take over if they show up again, but they have to actually just, like, show up again.
Or they just don't want to, or something.
That's true. They could just be like, look, you guys, you're doing fine on your own. I'm just going to continue to do my stuff over here. It's nice that you found me over here and you saw me, but, like, you know, I got business to take care of. I'm going to go over here.
Okay, I like this. Primarch equals regional manager. Chapter master equals assistant to the regional manager.
Yeah. This is just a smaller link that I do wanted to put here because Momo shared it with us with some things. It's just some updates for some Warhammer-based video games. Rogue Trader is getting a Shovel DLC, which I guess is connecting up with the Dark Tide, which is the other Warhammer game that's kind of been out and kind of big. Dark Tide being the, like, Left 4 Dead style type game. What type of game how would that be called? What style is Left 4 Dead?
Left 4 Dead?
Yeah.
Survival horror?
I guess you could just call it survival horror. But it's that style of game where, like, you have the 4 players, like, fighting towards and stuff.
I mean, so the game is survival horror, but yeah, it's like a like team shooter. I don't know, or like
because Dark Tide is the same kind of game.
Yeah,
the Warhammer game, and then Rogue Trader is like a CRPG, so it's like a tactical RPG. So it's interesting that they're getting like collaboration between the two of them. It's kind of a weird thing, but yeah.
Yeah, cooperative first-person shooter is what I can find is what it is.
Yeah. Rogue Trader being like a storyline along, like, you know, just people doing business in the galaxy, in the Warhammer galaxy. I think that's a general summary. And then Dark Tide, you're on a planet fighting, you know, heretics.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, they got the little DLC. So a little bit of Warhammer-iness to finish out our day there. Mm-hmm. Okay. So, I wanted to talk about a topic that I thought would be interesting to hint on here, or to go into, and that's because we've kind of hit on it here and there, and that's supplements and supplemental mechanics. What I mean by this is like, if you think about it, all extra books other than the core books are technically supplemental books. Well, I don't mean that necessarily when I talk about this. I mean, like, those books that introduce, like, new mechanics, new gameplay stuff, and stuff like that, you know.
Official supplements or non-official supplements?
We can talk about both of them, you know, because both do exist. So, like, here's the thing that I'm going to kind of try to take a step back before we talk about them as a topic, and this is the important thing about this here. Supplemental material is never needed for your games. That's the easy and quick way of saying it. If you
Except
feel
when
like,
it is.
Again, that's what it comes down to. When you are doing something in a story, or telling a story in a way, where you need something because it makes sense logically. I have my players on a boat, and they're having a ship battle. I need some kind of rules for a ship battle. There's an interference with some kind of army. Maybe I need some kind of army rules. There is some kind of, like, special type of puzzle challenge that I need these extra special rules for. There's a mystery that I need some kind of mystery-based rules for. You know, a chase scene. I need chase scene rules. You know, things like that. That they do come up occasionally, and you need something about them. And I think it comes down to, also, you don't necessarily need to use someone else's rules. I think that's also important about this, too.
I think... Yeah. Oh, no, I'll let you finish.
I was just going to say, it comes down to, you need something there. Yes, people have put out something a lot of times for games, whether it's published or not, and it can be helpful to you. You can always use that as a stepping stone to make something of your own. Just be careful, because, again, like, when you're making your own, higher chance of problems with designing it, you know?
Unless you stick to some certain guidelines, which...
True.
Yeah, there are certain guidelines, which is kind of something that... yeah, there are ways to go about that. It depends. I could probably go into that, but that'd be almost its own topic. How to design custom mechanics.
Yeah. And again, like, you can definitely give an argument that, like, any book we got is a supplemental book, you know, that's not the core books. I think, as I said at the beginning.
Yeah.
It's just...
I mean, that is an argument, and that's why but at the same time, it's like, I mean, a lot of some supplemental material add things like character races, character classes, etc., which just expand the game. They're not necessary, but they expand the game. Yeah.
And I think, like, when a supplemental material becomes a lot more major rather than, like, character options, you know, maybe extra enemies and stuff like that, it comes down to specialized mechanics. It's sort of the difference between... I'll always remember with a book that provided a little bit of story time, 3.0. Back in 3.0, Wizards put out a book called The Miniatures Guide. It was around the same time as they put out their miniatures game, which I own a lot of still. Anyway, it provided a bunch of character options and creatures and stuff like that, but also broke down both squad-based miniatures rules that could be applied to not just the miniatures game they had, but to a actual role-playing game, and some army rules. Were they great? They were okay. It's 3.0. It was actually 3.0, and 3.0 still had some problems. Why did they put out 3.5? Really? Though we could argue money also, but they really fixed a bunch of things there. So, it was in that time period, but they had squad, you know, combat / mass battle rules that they established those. And those are some of those big supplemental rules that we talk about, you know, like, there's a lot of supplemental type rules you could go into, and they are just that. You don't necessarily need them. They're supplemental, you know. Sometimes they could come up in your story.
And personally, I say for anything that doesn't fit the base game's main style of play, and this is a personal opinion, but I have some reasons for it. Anyway, anything that doesn't fit the base game's, like, style of play, go to a third-party supplement. Because things like mass combat are almost always poorly done because they try and stick within the mechanics of their game, which is almost always designed for single units. And they kind of just almost always expand upon that in a way that is detrimental. It's better to just tack on a whole nother game from someone else's supplement than to like follow these kind of supplements most of the time.
It's that interesting thing of something that was not supplemental could be used as supplemental too, because, like, I'm going to say, Starfinder. We're going to talk first edition here. First edition Starfinder had some of the best Starship rules I have ever read.
I agree, actually.
But that could apply not only to other starships, you could use something like that for just ship combat, you know? It's sort of like one of those things that's sort of like, wow, this could be, like, the icons, a lot, again, mechanically, you'd have to do it differently, but a lot of the concepts of the way they handle it could be used so many great places for ship combat, anywhere, and it's sort of like, yes, it's made to be there. And that's, I think that's where it was not supplemental there. But you could use that and make a version of it for, like, 5e, or, 4th edition, for a lot of other places. There's a lot of concepts behind it that help so much.
Honestly, I was looking into even, like, adapting it to Traveler, because Traveler's space combat rules follow the annoyingly common, like, ship combat rules are almost always one person does everything.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what Starfinder got around. And there are a lot of other things which get around that, but it is really annoying that... Like, I recognize that Starfinder did that really well. They actually went and took the problem head on and were like, okay, how do we get everyone involved?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not saying you can't, but I'm saying that's almost a good point. It's almost better to tack on those Starfinder ship rules into your seafaring game than to follow the seafaring game rules. Cool. There is kind of a...
Buccaneers of the Shackled Sea. When I ran that's really Skulls and Shackles. Their ship rules were so bad. Their ship rules and their mass ship rules were so bad.
Yeah.
Well, we never did it.
Yeah. And while it's honestly a lot of extra information, Matt Colville's books for Knights and Kingdoms, I think it's called, I think is really good for... or no, is it called Kingdom? I think it's called Kingdoms in Warfare. Has a lot of intrigue and warfare rules.
Yeah.
Also a lot of like good stronghold rules. Better than D&D 5e.
Thanks 2024. Your stronghold rules are there.
They're better than I actually don't think they're terrible. I just think they needed more work. Like everything with 5.5.
I think when, like, I saw someone breaking down the stronghold rules from 5.5 and being like, hey, here's this Unearthed Arcana with stronghold rules. And they compared it and were like, it's pretty much the same thing. They just took their Unearthed Arcana, really didn't edit it. They edited a little bit. It's not 100% there. But, like, when it's like 95% the same, yeah. It wasn't bad. Yeah. It's just not a lot there because it's sort of like they didn't develop it anymore.
Yeah. So I actually think the 5.5 stronghold rules are fine. They're a good base, but honestly, if you run them, you're probably going to run into some people breaking the system. Because there's definitely some easy exploits. And also it's just also got some other issues, but anyway, but it's solid enough. But yeah, there are a lot of like people who put like passionately into things tend to make better systems because they're like, it's oftentimes people being like, we need a way to tackle this problem, and then they work on it, and it's like a small group of people usually who actually do a lot of play testing, which is why I feel like third-party supplements for those kind of things, like, is better. With that said, like, I still think Starfinder had its issues. Namely that it was flat DCs for basically everything, meaning which I really don't know why Pathfinder 2e even stuck to this idea of flat mechanics. It really should just been a reasonable check based off like the challenge. But like Aid and Other is like a flat DC, and it's just like, okay, cool. So they just auto succeed after level like 15, you know?
It might come down to that the bonus of like +1 doesn't mean as much. Maybe that's what.
Yes. But you could just like say, okay, well, if you're helping with a skill that's a master, now it's +2, or a legendary, now it's +4, or
True.
something.
Yeah.
Which actually, I think they do. Let me double check that. I don't know why. I think I got that literally from it.
I think you do bring up a good point about like the non-first party things, because like I think back to Pathfinder First Edition and all those adventure paths, and so many of those adventure paths have mechanics. Or I'm sorry, hey, why don't we talk about something that's D&D related? Curse of Strahd. Curse of Strahd has some weird side mechanics that are interesting, but they're just kind of like weird and there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, see, okay, wait, hold on. I want to bring up Aid for this real fast, where it's all like, I don't know why there's a flat check. You're kind of right, actually, because critical success gives you a +2, if you're a master +3, and if you're legendary +4. But success just gives you +1. So it's kind of almost just supposed to be, okay, Aid at later levels is you either succeed or you fail, and fail is a +1. Yeah, but I still think there's a better way to handle this. Anyway.
Yeah. But yeah, no, like, it's so many times, like, you know, story-based things, when people are writing stories, adventures, and stuff like that, they need a mechanic, you know. As I said, Skulls and Shackles has their boat mechanics there, so they're bringing that in. It's just like, I feel like a lot of these mechanics that they write in there aren't... They're oftentimes not good. You know, it's like one of those weird things, it's like... the weird extra mechanics in, as I said, Curse of Strahd were there too. Like, there's some things with, like, the weird, like, things with the Hero system, which were okay, and there were the entire, like, there was a couple other things that were strange in it. I remember that.
The tarot system for Curse of Strahd was honestly fine. I don't, like, it was literally just a way to randomize where things are.
It was a way to randomize where things are, but there was some other... I forget what it was. There was something else that I was reading up in the main book that like was kind of like weird, and I just didn't end up using related to the Cantero stuff. And also, oh boy, everything to deal with the Golden Temple.
Oh, that whole thing. Yeah, the temple of like the lost gods or whatever.
Yeah.
The Amber Temple, that's what it was called.
Amber Temple, that's what it was. Amber Temple. The Amber Temple was a trap.
It is. Which is why when I got to it, I altered it. So I agree that...
I should have altered it more. I didn't. And you know what ended up... Fortunately, we were in a place that it didn't really matter a lot in the game, because we were close to ending it, because we ended up narrating the end of the game, because, like, we ran out of time and had to, like, you know... things were happening that we weren't going to be able to continue to do. So, like, you know, we kind of finished, like, the last session ended up being more narrative, you know, with a couple of rolls rather than, like, a full-out battle or anything. But by that time, because we had lost to, like, a couple of players and I was down to 2, they took a bunch of dark powers. And it did not help.
And that's why I actually changed I actually made it so that way, first off, one of the players, like, you could, like, detect magic to determine, like, what the power would be ahead of time and what the drawback would be. I also made it so all of the alignment drawbacks had actual drawbacks, because alignment drawbacks are stupid and players never follow them.
Mm-hmm. But, you know, it's an interesting idea, but the company behind it's not executing necessarily well. And again,
yeah, I also made it so that way when they took they could take one for free, one that didn't give them a drawback. That was another thing. I wanted to let the players get something.
And again, like, I feel like these examples, the Pathfinder Adventure Pass, like, it's usually the older ones. They're examples of, like, when we're talking about the company's not really doing a lot of good supplemental rules. They sometimes do. It's not always.
Yes. I mean, like, we talked about Pathfinder or Starfinder 1E and its space combat rules. But then again, they wanted that to be a core part, so they put a lot of effort into it. Traveler, funny enough, its space combat is fine. It's actually probably, I think, better than a lot of other ones. But funny enough, Traveler's issue is that the skills you need to run it are skills that your characters actually have to spec into. And that's actually, I think, the problem with Travelers, is because players want to build a character. If they want to build a fighter, they don't want to also have to take space guns as on top of normal guns. They want to take laser guns and knives, and they don't have to spend skill points just to do space stuff. And you have to be clear to players doing that's going to be something they're going to want to build around their character, but some people still don't want to. So it's kind of that's hard when you have, because Traveler just has so many skills. It's one of those you can't be good at everything games.
Yeah.
Pathfinder, at least has more skill points to throw around. And with flat DCs, it did mean that, Starfinder, with flat DCs, it does mean okay, cool, I don't have to spend all my points into this to be good at it, which is what Pathfinder 1E had the issue with. Starfinder was a good in-between. But yeah. So that's for space combat stuff. I think, honestly, I plan to mix a little bit of Starfinders into space combat if I run Traveler again.
Kind of come up with an interesting kind of in-between, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, and then there's the whole, Traveler actually has a lot of custom supplements, and this is another type of supplement, which is, okay, here's more if you want to change the way the game works. And I actually like that about Travelers. They have rules for injury, dying, injury, if you take an injury, if you drop to 0 of a stat or something, in which you have to heal, and then you've got, extra stats, like you can have a luck stat and a, or you can change, your social stat to a charisma stat if you don't want to make social standing a big aspect of your game, and just go back to charisma. So it's they've got a bunch of optional rules, and then they have a whole nother book dedicated to just optional combat rules for if you wanted more tactical combat and stuff, suppressing fire and area attacks and mortars and electronic warfare, and they have a whole section, a whole nother book dedicated to the advanced combat rules. So, that's kind of neat, where it's okay, they broke it down so that way people who want certain things can add certain things.
I think the entire point of this conversation, and we're hitting a lot of good points here, is that there are going to be things that you will face in your adventure, in your game, that you will need something else outside of the rules with. Now, granted, this could be, this is something that's supplemental to the mechanics of the game. And, strictly speaking, in the simplest terms, just figuring out something on your own is pretty easy. It could be something as simple as making a decision about how something works. But a lot of times, your players will do something a little crazy, a little different. And doing some different things can also add variety. It's sort of like we talked about alternate types of dungeons and exploration and kind of stuff like that before. A lot of those are supplemental. Those are extra different things that you are bringing into your game to make something just a little bit different.
And that's what I was talking about. If you're going to do something like mass combat or different dungeon styles, you should very much go somewhere else for them, because you're not going to find, in fact, dungeon, we mentioned what was the point crawl. That's what it was called. The point crawl, you're not going to find rules on that. I have not found a good solid set of rules on that. It's really just point to point is important. You can have maps at the other end, so you do what you want with it. It's more of an idea that
it's an idea and has a bit of detail behind it, the idea, how to do it. But full rules, there really isn't one, and you're going to have to kind of come up with something on your own. Full rules.
Yeah. How does traveling work? Do they have to find specific areas? Do they have to or do they know, or do they have a map where everything is and they have to decide their path, and that's what's important? Point crawls can vary. Yeah, but anyway, back to supplements. like I would argue that there is a very easy supplement, and it's the skill challenge, and that can actually make literally every other type of thing like warfare, mass combat work. And that is that I think D&D not putting, I was hoping they'd bring back the skill challenge in their 5.5 book, but no. It's basically just players need a certain number of successes before they reach a certain number of failures. If not, something bad happens. Not necessarily like their next encounter is severe instead of, let's say Pathfinders, their next is severe instead of moderate if they fail,
It comes down to, that there will always be missing points of a RPG system. And even sometimes, as we kind of talked about, when a adventure tries to fill in those gaps with stuff, it is not always done well. So it does kind of come down to, you have to recognize when those gaps are in the mechanics of a game you're running, and what you can do to fill them. I think that's the good question, is what actions would you take to fill them?
Yeah.
And yeah, that can take a variety of forms in a lot of ways, so I think I always do enjoy, having little extra rules or stuff like that, like these, like supplemental little mechanics to have, because it does add variety. I think that's the other thing too, is like, as much as you can have fun doing a million battles, with your D&D characters and stuff like that, or things, is the base rules, they can get boring, not that, like, I think it's one thing. Story helps a lot. The way you present it helps a lot. But in the end, you also want that, and like the trifecta of like the mechanics you're actually running. And, that's why, like, new character stuff, more character options, adds a little bit of that flair in there sometimes. Oh, I can play this really weird class combination over here and stuff like that, and this can be another way to add a little bit of that flair in there. Just to get it.
Yeah, and, like, I have a whole thought that was... I lost my train of thought. But yeah, let's see, where was I? Oh yeah, that's where I was going to go with it. So, I think it's very important to remember that I feel like too many people try to, like, role play out things in a way, and, like, I think people need to gamify things more, Yeah. Like, people, like, the suspension of disbelief happens. It's required to do role playing. You need mechanics. And to gamify things like, skill challenges and that kind of stuff can actually make things more fun, because it makes you think about things in a different way. It's not like, what do I do here affects, almost as much the role as it does,
Yeah.
And there are ways to mix it too. And that's why I think supplemental stuff is good, because it can add new rules and new mechanics, especially more generic things, Generally, though, as long as it's sticking to the core of the system, like for Pathfinder, characters, races, backgrounds, classes, etc., the supplements from, itself is probably going to be the best. But if you want more of those, you may want to go to third-party stuff, and there's plenty of third-party stuff where it's like, oh, I need a bat race for my world. I'll find a third party, or I'll adapt it, or what, Yep. You want to change up the way combat works. There's probably third-party supplements for that, In Traveler, there's first-party supplements for how to mix up combat. So it really depends on what game you're playing, what its core idea is. Like, Traveler has a very military core to it. It's like, if you look at, like, there's like 15 backgrounds or there's 15 like previous careers, and 4 of them are military, or like 5 of them are military. You know, it's like there's a very big military idea in that system. You know,
it comes down to a lot of times that you know, as Rina stated, you're probably going to need something somewhere that's a little different than your normal stuff in your adventures as you go along, and you know, even if you want to do stuff on your own, looking up stuff helps. You know, it's inspiration. I think I always talk about how inspiration is like a huge thing you want to be able to do, because it helps you out. And you know, if you're going to use one of these weird mechanics and stuff like that, and like, you know, it's kind of like how I got inspired to do the optional, do my own system of exploration, the maze exploration. And what was I inspired by to do that? The card-based maze system.
Yep.
I saw the card-based ones, and I'm like, I don't really want to do a card-based ones, because it's kind of hard to do online. Maybe I can do like a skill challenge.
In Roll20, it would have been fine. In Foundry, cards are a pain. I want to look for a better card module.
Okay. But like, I was kind of inspired by that, kind of doing something like that on my own, but also making it more kind of like a skill challenge, because I'm like, I like kind of skill challenges, and like maybe just rely on dice rather than cards. I know cards are, you know, yes, you still rely on dice sometimes with card systems, but you know, that's where I came to the concept of trying to do one of those. So it's like I was inspired by another optional, basically, system that someone came up and kind of came up with my own. And, you know, it took some time to refine something that worked on that, you know, and felt like it worked well. And I think it's the other thing, too, is like, you're maybe not going to get it right every time if you're like working on something or adapting something, and just be ready to change your mind. Even if you're playing something that's pre-made, if there's a problem with it, you can change it. And you might not see that problem until you're playing with it. You're like, I don't like how this is working. Let's switch this around. As long as it's fair and it helps everybody, you know, it's not just one side or something like that, then it's fine. Alright. Anything else related to supplemental materials with really and supplements and kind of stuff that we can talk about here?
Actually, there's one more thing I would say.
Ooh.
Don't be afraid to just look for random mechanic ideas on things like Reddit and, you know, forums and stuff, because you'd actually be surprised how often I'm just all like, either Reddit points me to a supplemental book that's like really good, or and I'm not even like asking people. I'm just Googling it, finding a Reddit post, and like they give me like 3 ideas for how to solve it.
Yep.
So
the question that you're going to ask, more like there's a 95% chance someone somewhere has asked it online. I think that's a really great way of saying it. Someone somewhere has probably asked it online. That's why it's a lot like you can go in there and get that answer a lot of times, because someone's asked it, and you know there's going to be an answer.
Yep.
There's a few times that like there'll be problems. I know, like, granted, that's usually been like weird mechanic actions, and like people have talked about these weird mechanical interactions sometimes that I've run into in games. But there's also times that they've talked about it and no one has an answer. And that's always the weird one. You know, like this spell interacting with this spell and this like creature or something like that. And I'm like, how would that work when, like, you know, this spell's supposed to make this work, but this thing's immune to this one thing, and like we're got this weird stuff like that. It does happen.
It does happen. What's really funny is part of me is just all like, I remember, like, for me, like, I just sometimes have questions all like, why is this mechanically this way? For example, my number one example, mage armor in Pathfinder 2e, or whatever they call it now, mystic armor, I think. I'm just like, it's actually kind of worthless of a spell, because, you know, mages can, and like I tried looking up what the mechanical design of this was, and as far as I could find, the idea is just aesthetic. Basically, if someone doesn't want to wear armor, they can have an option.
Huh.
And that's like the only that's the only like slightly viable answer I found. Stuff like that. Sometimes like I do question certain things sometimes, and I'm just like, I'm surprised no one has an answer to this.
I mean, that's a very interesting one. How it does
Funny
give
enough,
you a bonus. It's just like a +1 bonus.
The bonus. So here's the thing.
AC. Yeah.
The bonus is in like is often gets you, I think, 1 level before you would otherwise get the bonus, just etching your armor, your adventuring armor with runes.
Oh, well, I guess if you're only trained in unarmored proficiency, you're not really going to be using runes on not wearing armor.
You actually, so that's the whole point of the adventurer's clothing, or the adventurer's garb, or whatever it's called. You can etch that. It counts as armor, and you can etch it. Meaning, the only reason is if you, like, for whatever reason, didn't want to wear that and wanted to only wear fancy clothes, maybe you could get away with it.
Wow. I really didn't see anything about the adventurers already. That makes sense, though. The adventurers
what is it called?
Well, there's explorer's clothes. They have.
That's it. The explorer's clothing.
Yeah.
It can be etched. It is mechanically etchable.
Etched
It counts as armor.
Potency runes. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that one has baffled me. Now, if I were to change it, you want to know what I would do? I would make it count as armor that actually gives an AC bonus and just lowers your dex cap. Making it so casters who don't want to focus on dex can frontline if they for some reason wanted to. So personally, I plan to rework the spell for that. So basically, you can have like an AC bonus of +2 with a dex cap of +3 or something. You know, basically allow light armor for unarmored characters. You know, that's what I would have done.
I guess Mystic Armor does kind of get better, but heightened 10 is.
Yeah, but that's the thing. You have to spend one of your highest level spell slots for your armor for the day.
For 3 AC and 3 bonus to saves, which is like, yeah.
Which Explorer's Clothing can get to. Like I said, the Mystic Armor tends to get there 1 level before the Explorer's Clothing can. That's the only benefit, is those slight 1 level periods.
Yeah, it's so weird. Huh.
Mm-hmm. And it's an item bonus, so it doesn't stack with the runes.
Yeah.
Anyway, I've thought about that a lot.
I guess it's because they added the clothes. Yeah.
Was that not in... Actually, let me check. If that was not in... I'm pretty sure that was in the original, though.
There's a legacy version of this. Maybe. What could be it?
Not the legacy version. I'm wondering if Explorer's Clothing were in the previous.
That's what I'm checking the legacy version.
Anyway, this is kind of a random tangent, but yeah, that's kind of the thing. Which is, I'm like, sometimes people don't answer things on Reddit, and that's the one thing I found. Where's Pathfinder? 2E character? No, it's ID Player's Guide. Core Rulebook, that's what it's called.
Yeah, there really wasn't a need for it per se because of the potency wounds. I guess it's like spell slot.
No, it was in the original.
That's what I mean. I guess the big thing is spell slot versus money.
Okay.
What would you rather spend your money on? That or use the spell slot?
I mean, I again think it's a style thing where it's like, no, my character doesn't. Like that's the only explanation I heard where I'm like, you know what, I could see someone doing that.
I can see the style thing too, but I could also see like someone being a cheapskate, so wanting to spend their money somewhere else and just using the style slot. Anyway. I think that's the other way I can see it, maybe. But that's an interesting thing. Yeah,
that's why what I would do is I would basically just make it be like medium armor that uses your unarmored proficiency. Allowing for a spellcaster to do something. If they wanted to spend a spell slot every day on it, they could basically not have to put as much. Because that's the thing. To make full use of Explorer's Clothing, you have to have a +5 in Dex. Meaning you have to spend 2 level ups on it. 2 attribute ups on it.
Anyway, that's interesting. Why don't we move on to our week there? I think that was a pretty good discussion on the topic there. I think this was a little bit more of a generalized topic, but we've been kind of like hitting on some of the more like specific topics that are kind of under here. And I felt like because we were doing that, we might want to do the generalization a little bit here too.
Yeah,
so.
We should do how to design your own mechanics in the future. I kind of like the idea of that one.
That's interesting too, yeah.
Because I have opinions. I've put a lot of thought into game design. This is why I need to run games. I feel like my channel would pop off if I ran games, but I've just been so busy. I just have so many like ideas.
Yeah. So we had a week in gaming. I guess it starts with Joe's game, which was this week.
Yes. Basically, we fought a dragon.
Yes, we fought a dragon. It went.
Yeah, no, I actually, that was a very fair fight. We got, they got lucky, we got lucky at times, you know, and it was tight but fair.
There's some good rolls there, I think.
I actually do like Joe's fights, honestly. I feel like he does a good job putting those together. Roleplay is very lackluster, but
I think I don't necessarily mind the fights, but I would like them to be sometimes a little bit more spread apart, and because his fights feel like they're always very epic, I kind of am like what we talked about with encounters for Pathfinder 2e, where you should have some smaller ones. I would like some more trivial based fights or something, or stuff that's supposed to, like, you know, less just big fights. They're fine. I don't mind them, but like it feels like that was a lot of our fights are like big epic fights.
I think it's because he doesn't want to do well, and then I agree. Yeah, some medium fights would be nice.
Again, it comes down to time constraints too, though. I understand.
Yeah. My thought was my thought would be like, I mean, he can still do a lot of combats. It's just it's just he could plan that out a little differently, like plan for like 2 or 3 combats in a game rather than one big one.
Yeah. So yeah, it was just pretty much the big dragon fight. We defeated it. Cool, thumbs up. Did you do anything on Monday or Tuesday?
No.
Yeah, I think Wednesday and Fall of Atmosphere was the next day we did stuff, which I think it went interesting. Here's the thing. I had some knowledge about these things, but this was the point in time where, like, after you're outside of that facility, I didn't have an exact place for you to go. I let your rolls and your ideas do directions. There were some things I knew were around that I kind of had ideas for, but I really didn't like dive too deep into them. And that was kind of thing is like I do have this kind of like honestly collection of monsters that are over in my like character thing, which I put together just so I can like, you know, put together some battles and stuff here and there if I need to. I felt like that was a good idea.
That's a good way to do it.
So yeah, you finally left the underground. You fought a bear, which was there on the way out. Which you here's the thing: you could have investigated that bear more. It actually was being kept there as a guard.
Wait, there was a bear?
Remember you fought the bear when you were leaving the cave?
Yes, the bear. Thank you. I completely blanked on that for some reason.
Yeah, it actually was technically a trained bear. Because, you know, they just had it in the cave there. Occasionally gave it food and then would kill anybody else that would kind of enter there or hunt on its own. So there was a good reason for those people that were using that place to be there. But you really didn't investigate that. It really wouldn't have been too much. Then you found someone crushed by a tree, evidence of another person, followed it to where you found some people that had some prisoners. You fought them, and tricked the hell out of an ogre.
Yeah, that was fun. I'm glad I got to use my illusions finally. I felt like I haven't had a lot of good places to use them.
It was also like the thing where, like, you know, Tiv did a good job of being like, it is that thing of like, Tiv's kind is rare around here, you know?
Yep.
So...
Oh no, I thought that was great. I thought it was hilarious that he failed his rolls. And then I liked just tricking the dumb ogre. Or the dumb, yeah.
You just basically trick them all, because, like, they none of them knew better anyway about, like, you know, that they should be worried about that guy. So, it was an interesting encounter.
Yeah, they probably found it suspicious, but they're like, the big ogre can take care of it. It's tough, you know?
It's the thing is, like, the goblin was like, yeah, sure, whatever, cool. Goblin wasn't going to be very nice to Tiv, but was kind of like, or to Eskrit, but, you know, was like, you know, well, we can have a pet. But the hobgoblin was definitely on guard the entire time. The hobgoblin wasn't buying it very well.
Yeah.
And the ogre was just, you know, wanted to pet the rat.
Yeah, no, I was very happy with how we split up the combat. I think that made it way easier. Because basically made it 2 combats instead of 1. But that's the point. I mean, like, I literally burned the last of my spell slots, kind of, to, like, do that. I didn't have very many left. We've been adventuring for a while.
Yeah. I felt it was a really nice, fun encounter, and I think it, you know, you've gotten some stuff out, and there's more hints of what's going on, etc., etc. We're driving the story, you know. As I was kind of talking about, as I was like thinking about, I'm allowing this to play out a little bit more than originally I was planning, but I think it's going in interesting directions, because I was originally kind of having like, aiming for certain amounts of, like, sessions in between each part. But I was also thinking about it, and I'm like, I gotta be honest, I had this, like, part 5. I can maybe skip out on part 5. I can have a finale in part 4, which is just as fine a story finale that doesn't need part 5, kind of thing like that. I could go to part 5, but it's kind of like that extra thing of, like, the extra sequel that you don't necessarily need. You can still fit it in story-wise, but maybe you shouldn't. And I've been thinking about that more, where, like, maybe part 4 is a better finale for the adventure. I haven't decided yet, but, you know, I'm keeping that option ready.
Kind of like how The Hobbit would have been a much better movie with 2 movies instead of 3.
Yeah. Where you could have, like, been more concise in certain things and not added some extra stuff that wasn't needed, you know? Certainly, like, there are things like the Battle of the 5 Armies in The Hobbit that I didn't mind that they were showing because Bilbo was unconscious the entire time. So, do what you will with that. We know what happens, but we never saw what happens in any of the material. So that was a perfectly fine, we'll show that off.
Yeah, they didn't need the obligatory love arc. I do hate that just Hollywood demands a romantic arc.
Yep.
It really is built into, like if it doesn't have it, from what I understand, like, Hollywood will reject it. Like, it's actually this thing where it's all like, there's this whole base procedure, and, like, but I feel like the best movies don't stick to that. The most cut and copy paste movies do. Yeah,
I'm sorry. Not all movies need a romance plot. There are lots of them that don't. And, you know, they don't. And there are plenty of movies that don't have those, is the thing, too. There are relationships and emotional arcs. You can just replace it with something there. You know, I don't know.
I think people need to also understand that a platonic friendship can actually take a place of the love arc as well.
Yeah, like a deep friendship with someone.
Yeah, or, like, people learning to, like, become friends.
But Wednesday was good. I'm very happy. We had a couple, like, I felt like the first couple of sessions were a little rocky, but I think we're kind of getting a stride.
Yeah, I think it was just you not having run the system in a long time and not knowing it super well. Don't worry, I'm helping out. I planned a game to death because I haven't had time to sit down and figure out how to run it. So I've been looking at the mechanics for, like, months.
It's like, I can feel, because again, like, I did run a couple of months of second edition, so it's getting the rust off, but also kind of, like, you know, seeing how the differences are, which again, like, there are some not. Like, the differences are, I feel like, a lot more subtle in the remaster, you know, because they're there. Definitely some interesting things there. So, like, I'm liking the kind of feeling out things for it. I guess, did you do anything on Thursday or Friday tabletop related?
No. I did have the game today.
Yeah. You did have the game today?
I did.
Okay, how'd that go?
Good. A lot of us literally just talking about how we're going to equip our crew for the potential upcoming descent onto a place that's got a lot of zombies and undead. So we got a bunch of silver weapons for our crew, and did a bunch of shopping, and then asked some person some questions who knew some stuff, and then we left. Honestly, I wasn't paying like a ton of attention today. I'm still not like 100% from my pain day yesterday, so I was just kind of like, eh. I was also making my character for the game tomorrow, so.
Yes, if you're unaware from previous years, and because I don't think I'll have a full announcement after this year.
I think you also missed it last year.
No, we did have it, but it was another. Unfortunately, last year was also kind of last moment too.
Yeah, it was 2 years ago. You skipped it.
Let me just. I might have missed a year. Because apparently this is the 7th year of doing it.
You definitely missed one. I know that for a fact.
I'd have to check like the dates of things, but I do have like 7 seasons worth of characters in here right now.
Do you not have a May the 4th be with Star Trek playlist that you could just check?
Oh, you're right. I could go on to. Let's load up my playlist.
Yeah, and you can just look at the dates there. But yeah.
2024, 2023, 2022, 2021, 2020.
I would have sworn it was within the last, like, 2.
2019. I started in 2019. That was the first one. So I have actually had all of them. Yeah. 24, 23, 22, 21, 20.
Maybe you just didn't ask me one year and I just completely didn't know what happened.
I think it was a year that you were busy, couldn't do stuff for a while, so I just didn't ask you for it, because of something else that was going on that you were like couldn't join a game. So I just I think something was going on that you couldn't join a game, and I just didn't bother asking. So I'm like, I'm gonna assume you're busy or something, or I got enough players before I got to you or something like that. Yeah. I don't know.
I don't either.
The problem is, and this is the thing I both love and hate, is it remembers who you named yourself previously, not the player, so it's kind of hard to tell who's who for the character sheets. Like, who owns this? Sometimes it says the player, but other times it'll be like, name of this character that's in the list of characters. And I'm like,
yeah.
I would like to know, player name for this character, not that. Thank you. We'll have to talk about that. That'll be tomorrow, as long as everything goes according to plan. 3 players, thumbs up. And I'm trying something a little different this year. It is a story. As you can guess, it will have something related to very Star Warsiness. But I'm trying this year to have 2 related plots, a plot and a B plot. And they are related, but they're different. So we'll see how that goes. Because that's very Star Trek to have an A plot and a B plot. So
it is, 100%.
Yeah. So we'll see how it goes. It might not go
Yep.
I'm experimenting with some things just because I'm trying to get my, I might run it once a year. But again, it's a good exercise for things, because sometimes, even in a one-shot, there can be more than one plot, and you have to kind of balance them. There can be, a major plot and a minor plot.
Yep. And they usually link somewhere in the middle or at the end.
Yeah. So that's kind of how it is. There's going to be a major plot and a minor plot. But you'll be introduced to them early on, so it's not really a spoiler,
Yeah. Like how the weird holodeck nonsense that they were trying to figure out what was wrong with, and then suddenly they realized, oh, it wasn't what was wrong, it was the solution to the thing that was wrong, and we've been wondering what it was this whole time.
Or they're trying to negotiate someone, and cards stuck in the holodeck for another holodeck episode. It's something we have to get them out to negotiate this thing.
Yeah.
That one's a little weaker for B plot, but stuff like that.
Yep.
All right. I think that's probably our week then. So we can kind of give our goodbyes. Why don't you give your shot?
Yep. I am DiamondWyrm. You can find me on twitch.tv/DiamondWyrm or at DiamondWyrm on Twitter and Blue Sky. DiamondWyrm9234 on YouTube. You can also just search DiamondWyrm in YouTube and I will pop up. That's one thing I've learned. Because I think I'm the only person named DiamondWyrm on YouTube. But, you know, it still assigns you a number because, frick you. I should be streaming tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. PDT. As long as I'm not feeling, like, still kind of meh. If I'm still feeling meh, I might skip it just to recover.
Okay. Makes sense. What? There we go. Oh my god. I must have been, like, doing a typo and my brain wasn't reached because it took me 4 times to get that shout out. I swear I must have been doing the same typo every time, and just, like, my brain wasn't registering at the end, and I'm like, brain, what are you doing here? What are you doing to me today? Yeah, it's one of them days. Myself, TCGs, you check out the rest of my stuff, whether it's over on YouTube or joining me live on Twitch. If you're on the YouTube side, hey, do the YouTube algorithm stuff. It always helps over there. You know, always let us know what you think about all the news topics and stuff like that. If you've got any kind of opinions about that. Next week, check out. I'll be back on Tuesday for gaming. Of course, check out Fall Down and Swell. Wednesdays at 8. This show every Saturday at 6, or most Saturdays at 6, I should say. And yeah, make sure to check out my stuff. My social media link below. Alright, everybody, have a great rest of your Saturday, great rest of your weekend, and check out Worm, and I'll be back on Tuesday then. So, or no, actually tomorrow. That's right, I'm back tomorrow for May the 4th be with Star Trek. Yeah, anyway, I remembered. Bye!